many people have ulcers, not only because of the stresses and because we have taken the protein out of our stomach lining and reduced the amount of thickness and strength of the stomach lining, because that's definitely an attributing factor, and because we're lacking of B vitamins also, and it can't replenish itself as good and as fast, many of us will eat between meals. We've got to snack something. And as soon as we do this between meals, it fills the stomach, coats the stomach, and it can't heal as fast. An ulcer or a damaged area in the stomach lining, when it's empty, can heal itself within 90 minutes. It's one of the fastest healing organs of our human body. And so we can literally get rid of ulcers by not eating between meals and by keeping our protein and B vitamin level up. Now, in Europe, they know not to give milk and cream and various dairy products. They don't give these milks to coat the stomach. They don't do that at all. In America, the doctors recommend keeping the stomach coating and keeping it filled and using bland foods and all that sort of thing. And they can keep you sick for just months and months. They can even get it to a stage where they got to cut this thing out of your stomach. And it's definitely not an agreed practice in Europe for the doctors there, and it's not an agreed nutritional practice. The practice is build your health up and start leaving your stomach empty and give it a chance to heal.
What about fasting?
Fasting is something that is an excellent thing to do, but today can be a little dangerous. If you just start initially to fast and you've been used to all these chemicals and poisons that's in food, and you've gathered and collected many of these poisons in your fat, as this is built up in there, literally a storehouse of poison, and you start to fast, that will be dumped out of your system very quickly. Now you will know this happens because you'll start to fast and you'll start getting headaches. It'll start causing some kind of a trouble, and it removes these fat cells, gets rid of these poisons, or puts these poisons out in your system, and you can get a lot of headaches, and it can almost poison you. So you have to be kind of careful and start reducing your chemicals a long time. But fasting has a lot of good advantages. When you finally are able to do some of it, 2 days, 3 days, your body kind of shifts into a fasting mode. And one of the first things it starts getting rid of is some of the poisons in your system, and it starts getting rid of bad cells, cleansing your body, making it better and healthy. It's highly recommended scripturally and otherwise. Now, in animal tests, they have forced fasted, if that's a good expression, various kinds of animals. Normally they had full diets, good animal diets that you might have where you were caring for animals, and they have forced them to fast automatically. They have extended the lifespan by fasting alone at least a third longer. So it is a life extension item to fast. And just as we know it says things in moderation in the scriptures, it also talks about fasting, quite often. And there's been some record fasts recorded. In the Bible it talks about 40 days of fasting. That seems like a long time to me, and I can't quite relate to that. But I've known of fasting to go on for mountain climbers that were longer than that, and their energy was kept up very well in this fasting. I don't understand all I should know about fasting, but there's some qualities there that could be looked into, read about, and once they're understood, I think there'll be some real good things, because removing bad cells from your body, it might be a good way to take care of many problems.
Is breakfast the most important meal of the day?
Absolutely. It is the most important meal. And I'd like to show you some information. We have some charts now that I want to go into. There's going to be 4 of them that we'll have sort of right in a row. One of them is a digestive enzyme story, and that first chart we'll go to. Then why do we need sleep? And then breakfast is a protein relationship we'll touch on real quickly again. And then we're going to get into the big one, how to save 25% or more on your food bill. We've touched on a lot of those now, but it'll be kind of like a summary. So let's go next now to the digestive enzyme chart, and let's really see why breakfast is the most important meal of the day. We talked about breakfast being the most important meal. We just talk about it. People have heard it. I don't think they know why, that breakfast is the most important meal. So I've designed this little chart to maybe make it very, very simple to understand why. Okay, throughout the day, we are living, breathing, moving, whatever, our heart's beating and things like that. And each of those things burn up some of the food that we take in. And as they burn it up, it's like burning calories. There is some ashes left over. Now, if you'd take a telephone directory and you'd throw it out on a thing and tear it up and burn it up, if there's no wind blowing, you'd find there would be some ashes left. Well, the same thing happens when we burn calories. Day and night, 24 hours a day, it never stops. But it does speed up sometimes and slow down other times. So this represents dumping ashes into this container, this hypothetical container of our body, and it's the speed these ashes are being accumulated day and night. So they're pouring in here. Well, after a good night's rest, this is filled up to what I'm saying is full here. And we have an estimated 1.5 pints of digestive enzymes. That's hydrochloric acids and all the other digestive enzymes that we might have. And we'll just call it full. And we're about to eat breakfast. So we eat the breakfast, we have all of that digestive enzymes to digest the food. Now that is plenty of digestive enzymes. We're ready for any food you want to eat. You eat it and that's fine. Now, whether you eat, drink, chew, or even think about food. You heard the old story, boy, my mouth waters, you know. Well, the watering actually is dumping some of these enzymes. You smoke and breathe. Anything else you might do is dumping enzymes, even if you're not digesting ordinary foods. They all dump the enzymes. And this is the rate they're dumping them. This is a speed to reclaim these digestive enzymes is a very, very slow speed. If you shut this off, well, they can be reclaimed more. Now, we start out with 1.5 pints of digestive enzymes and work it for breakfast. We'll digest those foods very well. Before lunch, though, we've maybe chewed some chewing gum, or we have thought about food, or we have ate some snacks or a candy bar or smoked or something else, and we got rid of some more enzymes. Then lunch comes along, we're down to here now, and we have a lot less enzymes for our lunch period. So we now burn up or use up a lot more enzymes digesting that. Well, before dinner, we burn up some more enzymes because maybe we've had a snack, or somebody smoked, or they've thought about food, thought about what they're going to have for dinner or something else, and we dump more enzymes till we get down to a very, very low amount of enzymes left. And that very small amount of enzymes that's left, we now hit it with a huge supper, or a huge dinner, whatever you want to call it. And all kinds of food, and we throw in there a pound of steak and all kinds of foods, good or bad, and we only have a small amount of enzymes to digest. And that's why that you run into a problem. Maybe only 5 or 10% of the enzymes are there to digest a huge meal. That means if you would eat 1/4 or 1/8 of a pound of steak for breakfast, that would be as nutritious because of the digestion capabilities of you at breakfast time as compared to a whole pound of steak being eaten for supper, and you know the price of steak. So there's a huge savings, because the big meal you eat for supper is mostly a waste. And in addition, with the low amount of enzymes, the body has a tendency to just take out the easier things that it can digest out of the foods in the evening, and it's liable to just take out the things that forms fat. So your evening meal is the time that makes you fat, and that's the one that's got to be cut out or cut down or reduced in some way. That is why breakfast has plenty of the digestive enzymes for an efficient meal, and dinner does not. So the savings, breakfast is the most efficient meal of the day. Let's go to the next chart now. Now in this chart, people ask a question, well, why do we need sleep? Or maybe the question could be, why do you sleep at all? Why do you have to sleep at all? I've heard people say they can last on 2 hours or 4 hours of sleep, and that some famous person somewhere back got along on only a few hours of sleep. Well, they don't always know the whole story, but there is differences in human beings, and some of them might require a little less sleep. But in general, if your body is functioning correctly, you need, as an adult, 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So a good 8 hours is a good old-fashioned thing. So here we're going to talk about this, to need sleep. 24 hours a day, your bodies are burning these calories. Sometimes they're burning more, sometimes they're burning less, but they're always burning them while you're awake and even less when you're asleep. The same kind of a system goes in here. When these calories are burned, there's some ashes are left, and these build up faster in the day than we can get rid of them, just like we talked about them before. Okay, and the ashes then are filling up another hypothetical tank here, and by morning, these ashes are pretty well gone in this case. The ashes are low, but throughout the day, they are very high, and you're going to have to try to get rid of these ashes. And the only time you can get rid of them is at nighttime, because you're not adding them very heavily. The example at right, more is pouring in at the top than running out at the bottom, and so the tank fills up throughout the day. By bedtime, we have a full tank of ashes and we feel sleepy. Let's imagine that you've been given a shovel and told to dig a 2-foot wide ditch, 2 feet deep long, clear across your backyard or something, and you got to do it in an hour. Well, you're out there throwing dirt left and right, and you're huffing and puffing, and you're really breathing heavy, and finally maybe you get the job done, and you just made it, okay? Well, you are very tired, but usually you're not sleepy. So there you're plenty tired, but you're not sleepy. You have not built up the amount of ashes necessary for you to be sleepy. It usually takes all day. And that's why then it takes about 8 hours of sleep after, well, at bedtime then we have a full tank of ashes, we feel sleepy. Well, it takes about 8 hours of sleep after the digestion, after it stops, to clean out the tank. So it means if it takes from 2 to 6 hours to digest a meal, and some foods take maybe a half an hour, like water and juices takes about a half an hour, and meats take maybe a couple of hours, where some milk products will maybe take 4 hours, and in certain combinations of foods may take up to 6 hours to digest your food. And another factor is that most of the time it takes about half of the meal to be digested, to give you, to just digest the meal, the energy from it, to just digest the meal. Half the meal goes for that. So we're looking at a situation here where these ashes are building up and they're not gone by morning because you have not had enough hours of sleep after your digestion stopped. So you can pick some times in here. We look into a situation here and we look at an evening meal chart. And this whole chart across here, we start at 6 p.m. in the evening to 7 p.m. and then 4 hours. Let's say you eat a meal at 7 p.m., a small dinner. It may take 4 hours to digest that meal, could take 6, so you're digesting the meal up to about 11 o'clock. Then here's midnight, and you have from 11 on up to 7 a.m., let's say that's the time you get up. You got your 8 hours to reclaim these digestive enzymes, to remove the ashes out of your body. If you didn't eat anything after dinner, and so you digest the meal, there's your 8 hours, and you're pretty good shape. If you finished eating at 7 p.m., and it was a light meal, 7 a.m., you're fresh. Now, there's a nice test in this. You know exactly whether this is working or not. This is not something you have to listen to me. You test yourself. If the alarm goes off in the morning and you're tired and you want to roll over and push the alarm off and go back to sleep, if when breakfast time comes along you say, I'm not hungry, just give me a cup of coffee or whatever else, some little thing, I sure don't want any fried eggs. If you have those feelings, you have not gotten rid of the ashes out of your system from the night before. You ate too late. There isn't any question about it. There's no argument about it. That's exactly what happened. You got up in the morning, your body is saying to you, look, fella, I haven't got rid of all the ashes from yesterday. What do you want to dump any more in for? Or give me some more sleep so I can get rid of some more of these ashes. I know it sounds silly, but that's the way the body tells you something, and that's the way it's telling you to in this. So if the ashes are not gone by morning, you'll not feel like getting up. You won't feel like eating a good breakfast. Your body's telling you to get rid of the old ashes before adding more. So then working makes you tired and not sleepy. Here's a big cycle. If you overeat or eat late at night after 6 p.m., you'll wake up tired. You'll not be hungry for breakfast. This cycle will continue day after day. You may be more tired than you should be. You won't eat as good a breakfast as you should. You maybe get very hungry for dinner, and then you'll eat too much dinner and that sort of thing. And we're going to see something else with teenagers here in a minute about this thing, but you can see that continual cycle goes and keeps people tired all the time. Now let's take just one more quick look then at our breakfast. We've seen this chart before. Here's our same chart. We're now recommending a very high protein, carbohydrate breakfast to keep this blood sugar level up high. And as long as we watch this digestion, this is the one we prefer, but this will work very nicely for most people, and they'll be able to eat 3 meals a day, and it works just fine. The first example above is the type of breakfast you'd need if you wanted to go on a 2-meal-per-day program. Now this chart is the one maybe you've been looking for, because part of our whole program on the Health and Happiness program is to save 25% or more of your food bill. Now we've talked about it quite a bit. You probably know all these answers before we even get into this chart, but this will help to refresh or summarize some of the savings, and I'll point out about some of these things. All right, on the food bill savings, breakfast is the most efficient. We've noticed already from that digestive enzyme page how that the breakfast is more efficient to eat and digest all kinds of food for breakfast than it will be for any other time. We want to eat the larger high-protein breakfast, That'll keep the blood sugar level up, and much less will be needed at or desired at dinner time, because it'll carry you through a lot further. You can eat lots less food, get more nourishment, and don't waste so much money on the food bill from that point of view. Now the teenagers, the way teenagers work, and if any of you had teenagers, you know this is the way it works, is they'll get up usually because they've been up late at night. The cycle that we're talked about is here. And at first, they're poor or no breakfast. They weren't hungry. So by them not being hungry, they didn't eat a good breakfast. Next thing you know, they eat a lunch at school or buy lunch. Third thing is that they'll eat after school. They'll come home after school, find whatever they can in the refrigerator and eat it. Later, they'll eat to dinner. Boy, they'll eat a good dinner. After that, they still want snacks after dinner, and sometimes they'll even have a bedtime snack or a midnight snack, which fouls them up, so they start this same cycle over and over. I want you to know that this person, this teenager, that thinks he's doing a good job here, he or she, is getting probably 1/4 to 1/2 or maybe even less nutrition because they're eating this way. But they're eating 2 and 3 times the amount of food they should have. This is a strain to the body. This is a situation that they shouldn't be in, and it's sure costing a lot of money for the family. And sometimes it'll even result in problems that comes along. But teenagers can handle a lot of things. But that's a very expensive, very inefficient, there's poor nutrition, and it can even reduce the health. It causes them, as you can see, it causes them not to be hungry at breakfast. And we saw, that's why they sleep. They have to get rid of this, all of this food they've eaten here late at night. They have to get rid of it before the next breakfast. So forth. Selective eating. Now, that's another way to save a lot of money, because many foods have no nutritional value. Why should you spend maybe 25 to 50% of your food budget on a food that has no nutritional value? And in fact, some of them have lots of harm. And so now you're spending lots of your food budget on things that actually harm you. They cost money, and a lot of those are white sugar, white flour products. 50, 60, 70% of a lot of people's diets are just on those items. They will not sustain life. They will not make you healthy. They will do nothing but cause you trouble. The next one is many foods are much more valuable when eaten raw. We've talked about the garden pea being worth so much more eaten raw than it is cooked and canned and that sort of a thing. So many vegetables, fruits, nuts, fresh peas instead of canned or whole, baked potato in the skin, whole wheat bread and pasta. All of these things that are more whole foods have more nutritional value, and a lot of times in their whole state. For instance, a baked potato costs less usually than if you try to buy mashed potatoes. And you buy some of these mashed potatoes, they don't even taste very good in the store. So maybe you pay a little more for a whole wheat bread somewhere than a white one, but it sure has many more nutritional values to it. So you're going to save a lot of money by buying the more valuable foods. The same with the drinks. A lot of people will drink a lot of drinks, just literally bottles of soda all day long and everything else, and they're doing them harm. They're going to harm their health. It may not show up until they're older, but they're going to mess themselves up, and they should not just fill themselves up with these worthless drinks. A lot of them have the type of artificial sweeteners in them, and a lot of them are going out. They think that's helping them, but those artificial sweeteners are going to be causing them all kinds of health problems. They are definitely artificial. They are not real, and even if they are made from real products, there's parts missing out of some of them that's causing them the health problems, and they're not good. And there's some of them are being taken into court. I've known some people that were taken into hospitals on a wheelchair because of these diet drinks with these new sweeteners in them, and they've taken into hospitals and almost die. And they finally found out that it was due to these artificial sweeteners in there, and they came out and they decided that, they tried some sweeteners again. They got in the same condition. They had to stop these artificial sweeteners. So there's definitely a lot of harm is being done in this, costing a lot of money for not only nothing, but to help put your medical bills up. So all of this put together is going to help save you on your doctor, drugstore, and medical bills. There'll be less sickness, therefore less doctor and hospitals. Prevent diseases. You'll feel better and have more energy. You'll get your job done better at work. You'll be able to do a lot of things. If you're sick, well, you'll get well quicker. Probably won't be sick, but nobody's perfect. Everybody does something wrong. Everybody's got their own little vice or their little things that they like and that they're not going to give up. There are certain things you will have to give up if you want health. You're going to have to give up tobacco if you want health. You're going to have to give up the caffeine beverages if you want health. And those are the main things. Now, other things, even white flour, you can almost make it up if you eat enough wheat germ and enough whole grain things and whole grain cereals to make up for a little white bread. It's not like a caffeine beverage that's a toxic additive that's going to damage all of your main organs in your body. Some of our great nutritionists of the day has said when they tried to work on people and they just would not give up their tobacco, they would not give up the caffeine beverages, they couldn't seem to get the natural nutrition up high enough to make them healthy. And it's just too much work. You just can't overcome all of that. Now, when you learn information that you help the whole family, as you gradually learn, you'll gradually adjust. As you adjust, you'll be improving on all of the various things that you need to do. And you'll be healthier. So there'll be less pain, and even aspirin and painkillers today cost you money. There'll be less suffering and trouble for everyone.
Jack, do you have any advice on eating out?
Well, probably not any better advice than anyone else. Everybody likes good tasting food, and everybody likes to go to nice atmosphere and some, nice looking restaurants, and they like to have a clean situation. So that kind of advice, I'm sure, would be the same from everybody. Let's eat what we want and let's get that sort of thing. I'd like to go a little further, though, and say that it's good to eat out at a place that you can get a complete and balanced meal. If you can choose it like from a buffet, that's nice. It may not have the same atmosphere as you'd like to have. But if you can choose a meal at a buffet, at least you can go through there and pick the protein foods you need, and you can pick all of the salads and get quite a variety of salads and as many times as you want to get those. It does encourage us all to eat too much. I'm guilty of that myself because I like to pick and think I know how to pick some pretty good tasting foods. And I sure do pick a lot of them. And I like that, and that's what I like eating out. I go to some high-priced restaurants, and I find that they won't bring you enough of one thing or they bring you too much of something else. I don't like them for that reason. And not all of them will have a good balanced meal or a good selection. And then, of course, when you throw in the costs of some things, that varies it too. So I prefer the buffets. Now, some of the many restaurants now have not only the main menu that you can pick from, but they'll have a salad bar then. That differs from a buffet slightly. On the salad bar will usually be just main kinds of salads and other types of green leafy things and things you can make up a salad. A lot of them are starting to have now sprouts on those salad bars and buffets. They'll have maybe one or two kinds of sprouts. They'll have sometimes sunflower seeds on there. A lot of times they're toasted. It'd be better if they were raw. They'll have some kind of granola type of a cereal thing there. You could sprinkle on a few things. You can put raisins on things. And a lot of them have cheese that you can put on salads and so forth, or eggs. You can, by knowledge of this program and other things you might learn, you can pick some pretty good things at a buffet and also even a salad bar type. And then you go in and get a good piece of meat. And a lot of the restaurants are getting into now getting their meat where it's leaner. They're being a little more concerned. A little bit of them are being more concerned about cholesterol. They don't exactly understand the good and bad cholesterol, but they got a little hint of it, and they'll help you a little on that. Since there is plenty of food there on salad bars and buffets, you're encouraged by that food to overeat, and that's one of my vices. And so I'm saying, try to be careful. Once you go to them regularly and say, I'm just going to eat certain things, I keep getting the impression I got to try it all. Eat all the different things, and that's not a good thing to do. There's a lot of restaurants, though, that does not have a complete meal. I'd like to talk about some of the Oriental restaurants, not any one in particular, but some of them you go into and you can get very little salads, very little green foods, very little enzymes in those. And you also get an awful lot of very high salt items in their soy products, or some of the MSGs, monosodium glutamate, that they put in a lot of things. And a lot of people have trouble with that. They're very heavy in the Oriental type things. So I'm a little concerned. There's getting to be so many Oriental restaurants around now, and most of those will not offer you a balanced meal at all. And when they do, is so limited that if you're really interested in health, I don't recommend that the place to go very often. Maybe on a rare time and just eat what little bit of lettuce or something they've got there for you. And so it's very, very poor from a nutritional point of view to eat those restaurants.
Mr. Diel, what don't you like about restaurants?
Well, that was one example right there. And I guess I don't like it because some of them think they know something about making money, but they don't think they know anything about nutrition, and they don't really care. If you'll eat it, they're serving the public. And if you understand what I'm saying when I say stratifying, I'm going to use that expression. At one time, I did some business brokering, and I particularly remember a pizza restaurant that was for sale. it probably had the worst tasting pizza that you could imagine. Most time pizza is pretty good tasting if you just like the taste. Well, this particular one had a pretty poor tasting pizza, and I think about everybody knew it. But they did have a clientele that did like the poor tasting pizza. The new owner that bought this store went in and changed the pizza to a much better pizza. Well, what happened is the strangers that hadn't been to his restaurant wasn't there to try his new pizza, and the only people that tried his new pizza was the people that liked the old pizza, so they didn't like the new pizza as well. It's kind of unusual. That's called stratifying. They get used to the old thing and they didn't like the new. And there's a lot of that going on. And so I think where they don't know anything about health, they don't know that butter is much better for you than margarine, so they got margarine in all kinds of things and even margarine spreads. And now the least they could do is have butter available by option that you could choose. And some of them don't even have that. So that's one of the things I sure don't like about them. And another thing mainly is their imbalance. A lot of places you go to and you cannot get your salads, as I mentioned in Oriental, and that they won't have whole grain breads. They'll have some kind of white bread, and they'll put it even on television saying how great their white roll is or something like that. And it makes me want to laugh at them. I mean, it's a shame they have no more nutritional knowledge than to want to put out something that has 2 nutritional elements in it, and 24 or 25 is thrown away, and it won't sustain life, and they're saying, hey, eat my white bread, you know, it's really great. And so that's something I don't like, because when I go into a restaurant, I like to be able to pick a choice of good quality foods. I don't expect it to be fully organic. I don't expect it to be all natural. But give me an option. Give me an ability to choose a little bit. If most people want their margarine, okay, that's America. But let them have some butter there that I can have too. You know, if a lot of people don't like salads or tomatoes or something, well, let them at least have it there so a person can choose it. And let them learn to cook their foods right and not mix a lot of things. As you've known by now, I don't like the idea of bacons and sausages and pepperonis and all kinds of things in the foods when there can be some real food, some real nutritional food there. And I don't like to see them dump in a lot of this. It's like the old say, ham hocks or you name it. You know, they say that the people eat every part of a pig except the squeal. A lot of people have heard that statement, and it's really true. You want to be some real odd things, they definitely eat all of the parts of a pig that you wouldn't think is to be eaten, and they grind them up in a lot of the hot dogs and things like that. And they, whether it be tail and so forth, but they also will fix the entrails of a pig to eat. So that really it's true. Now they'll put a lot of these different parts in a lot of the foods in these restaurants, and they may think they're seasoning it up like everybody wants it, but the people in knowledge and they want to stay away from the cholesterol and they don't like the pig products in these things, why they, you know, they don't like them that way. And again, there ought to be some consideration. Even I don't like the idea of they get in there and they'll have one food and 1 minute they're chopping away at a ham, and next minute it's a slice of turkey, and next minute it's some roast beef or something like that, and they're just sort of messy. They don't have any consideration for those of us that don't want the ham and don't want it all mixed in together. And so I like them to have consideration for their people, to be clean, and to have a nice variety to choose from and some options. And it won't have to satisfy just me, but to have enough options that they can pick and choose. If you take the sugar and the pork and the shellfish away from some restaurants, you wouldn't have a restaurant. That's how poorly they know anything about nutrition. And you just wouldn't have a restaurant left. And even some of the buffets, they want to dump sugar in everything. And just to help make it, make up for what the good taste is, they make it sweet. And I don't like those things about a restaurant. I guess those are probably the main things, other than just, I like them clean and nice variety.
Well, what is it that people do that blocks the benefits of good nutrition?
There's really quite a few things people do, because I think that the prevention of or the blocking of good nutrition is almost a daily practice for everybody in what they're doing. Somebody's got one habit, somebody's got another. One of the main habits is smoking, of course. And in the smoking area, with the different poisons that it takes it in, but really it blocks it in another way. You remember the story we talked about, the mule that had to get up and plow only after you hit him in the side of the head with a 2x4. Well, this means if you don't hit him in the side of the head with the 2x4, which happens to be the cigarette or one of the 98 poisons that's in cigarettes, that it just may not be, quote, plowing. It may not be serving your body, feeding your cells. Now, of course, that's blocking then good nutrition right there. Even if you ate some good nutrition and you hadn't really turned on what I'm going to call the island of Langerhans on the pancreas gland to produce insulin, We haven't turned that on, so the insulin can flow by direct blood path to the liver, pick up the stored glycogen from other products of digestion and the things that might be there, and it picks us up, and now it goes out and feeds the cells. Well, imagine how much, let's just say, any kind of nutrition, good, bad, or indifferent, that may not be working hardly at all in that person that smokes. That's how much are blocking it. It's doing a lot of harm. Now, it works the same way whether they smoke or whether they take a lot of sugar in that had to be that 2 to the side of his head, or whether it be the caffeine products or other drugs. It reaches a stage where ordinary food, even good, bad, but ordinary food will not stimulate that flow so that the cells become fed properly. And so there's a tremendous block of good nutrition, and that's why many people cannot seem to either get well if they're a smoker, or they're very heavily into the caffeine drinks, or they're very heavily into any of the habit-forming type of things that does this high stimulation, regular drugs. Now, another thing is liquids, just liquids. Whether they be good liquids or bad liquids, sometimes is too much. Since 35 out of 40 of the main nutrients are water-soluble, and a person is drinking a lot of nutrients, you've heard the old story, they're drinking their food, they're definitely not getting all of the good proteins and fats and carbohydrates and vitamins, minerals, and enzymes and all the other food if they're just drinking it. Now, it's even worse yet if they're drinking the alcohol, worse yet if they're drinking the cola beverages and teas and all these things. They are not nourishing themselves, and in a way they're filling their tummy with something that's not nourishing them, that's blocking their ability to hold a good food then. So in a way, that's a major way to block or prevent some of the benefits from good nutrition. The other way is stress. We allow a lot of stress to happen. Now, if we get plenty of proteins, we can help fight that stress, or let's say reach a stage where we can handle it. And you know, some people handle stress a lot better than others. It just seems like they can take it. You know, people dish it out and they can take it, but somebody else, you dish out a little bit and they're fighting mad. I mean, they're ready to either break down, have a nervous breakdown, or have some kind of real major problem. And they are not be able to handle the stress. So stress, even though it's not the thing that majorly causes the problem, it's definitely an attributing factor, and it's good to have our protein up so what little stresses we get or what large stresses we get we can take care of. So I'd say if you have a stress area, let's just say something you can correct, your boss is giving you trouble, talk it out with them. Do whatever you can to get that over with. Straighten it out. Don't let it continue. Go talk to somebody. If necessary, talk to their boss. If necessary, change jobs. I mean, you don't want cancer, do you? You don't want some of these major problems, heart trouble, to die. That's no good. That's not a way to get rid of your bosses. You die. It's not a very good program to do it that way. So use your head, things that are really bothering, things that are really causing trouble. If you've got problems with children, try to satisfy them. Talk to them, listen to them, lend an ear. You'd be surprised how smart they are, and if you'll listen to them a lot, you'll get a much better relationship going and reduce a lot of the stresses. If you have money problems, find some kind of a way that you can correct that. It isn't easy. I'm not telling you all these things come on a silver platter, but do something, do some extra work, take an extra job. Sometimes that'll add extra stress too, so you have to watch out. But really think about it. And I guess old George Bernard Shaw one time said that human beings only think about twice a year. Now, you can take that however you want, but we do so many things repetitiously and automatically that we don't turn our minds on to think. We probably are eating wrong because we didn't turn our minds on to think. We might pick or choose something that we could have chosen something better had we thought about it and give it some thought. And for those of you that are watching this program, you're going to be able to have a lot more to think about. And I think if you think about them, you might make some better choices. And this won't be a waste when you make those better choices. The other thing is rest. People burn the candle at both ends. They don't think they need sleep, or they use some kind of a drug or caffeine or something to keep them awake. And they don't get their regular 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep, whatever's necessary. Or the kids don't get enough sleep because there's so much television or Nintendos, and nothing wrong with that. But they are playing these games or they're watching these things to so many late hours that they don't get the rest they need. So we need to get our rest and things of that nature.
What else kills food value?
Okay, when we talk about killing food value now, we're now pointing to the food like we're going to be preparing it in the kitchen, or we're going to be buying it at a store, we're going to ship it or whatever. And there's many things. And it starts directly from, let's say, from the soil right on up. If we pick that food green before it's really ripe, before it's reached the maturity, well, in a way, it will not have the same food value that it should have had. Obviously, if you picked it green and just ate it right now, it isn't even going to taste like it should. You say, well, it'll get ripe. It'll sit there and get ripe, like some magical thing is going to pass a wand over it, and it's going to get some kind of nutritional value that it didn't have before, and it's going to become better for you. Well, definitely some taste change as the food ripens, and that's at least that much worthwhile. But to get the food always picked green, and we know that many of the grocery stores, they do pick the food green. They have to because they pick it in one state, and many states away, finally the food comes to rest on your grocery store. And if they picked it real fresh and ripe, it's going to perhaps get all bruised, rotted, dented, whatever happens to the foods before you get a chance to get it. So that's one of the reasons you want to make some choices in that area, where you get your food, where you buy it, and how ripe it is, and what you want to insist on. So sometimes we're dealing now with a storage problem, but before I talk about the storage, let's go back to another point that might change the difference on some of this food. You've heard of hybrid brands. There are some different kind of hybrid foods, and I've mentioned that tomatoes are now trying to be bred to be square so it'll pack better. They don't care about your nutritional value. It's trying to be bred so it has a thicker skin, so if you drop one of them, it won't split the skin and break it. They don't care. And so a lot of things have a lower protein content or a lower food value content because of the type variety or a hybrid that they happen to have put together for us. And so there's one of the choices that might render the food value much poorer. Now when we come to the storage idea, they pick it green. Well, they still have to store it a lot of times. There's a lot of nice warehouses around that stores the food, and people get fed here in America. They eat, if anything, they always get enough to eat. Not necessarily everybody, but most people get enough to eat, just the quality of food. In fact, we end up eating 2 or 3 or 4 times the amount it would need if these foods had a better nutritional value. Now the next thing is, since it's storage, and it can be in your refrigerator as well, or in your garage. In fact, think about that. Let's say we got a canned food. It's been canned at a high temperature, and you keep it around, or maybe it's kept in a store, and the temperature in the store is 80 degrees, or maybe someplace else in a warehouse. Maybe it reaches 90 degrees. That's almost like continuing to cook that food at 90 degrees. It's like cooking. It continues to cook. And as you store it for a long period of time, there's a continual loss of nutritional value in even canned products. You cannot have some canned food 1 year and 5 years later find it in your garage. It's been 80, 90, 100 degrees out there in the garage, and bring it out. It looks like the same can, and it may even taste the same, but it will not have the same nutritional value. It'll be dropped 20, 30, 40, 50% sometimes, and even more. So just that. So then we're speaking of heating. Just in your heating of foods, the whole rule is that heat kills some vitamins, and heat absolutely renders some proteins without use when it's overheated. So if we're careful and we eat medium rare steak, obviously you have to cook pork. If you're going to have to eat pork, I don't recommend it. You need to cook pork for, I think, 35 minutes at, 185 degrees or something like this to kill the worm in it. So heating is very powerful, kills a lot of the nutrients in it. So if you can eat a lot of vegetables raw, definitely fruits raw, you'll find you get a lot more nutritional value from that. So canning is a potent way to render most of the things non-nutritional. Now the shipping time, it may be a long time from the time it's picked until it gets to you, so that time helps to take away some of the food value. All of the processing, whether it's as simple as the cutting, where you cut away part of the food, or like you do to wheat, where you take 24 of the elements out of it and just leave some white flour that's left. This processing just gets rid of things. Sometimes some processing puts oxygen in the food, and oxygen is a destructive element to a lot of foods. And moisture is another one. Oxygen and moisture destroys many things in the food value. We've seen or heard of some of the things where they hermetically seal cans, or they put nitrogen in cans. Well, nitrogen is in our air, so that's one of the natural ways that you can seal away some of the moisture and some of the moisture, anything else that's doing harm to it, water and air from the foods. The nitrogen may help to do that. So, and then the idea of taking food value away, besides the growing it wrong, so now you put all these chemicals in it. You're adding chemicals in place of food. Sometimes they will substitute for milk, butter, eggs, and natural oils. They'll substitute a chemical. Now I understand there's some kind of a new chemical out now that's going to try to substitute for some fats. Let me warn you, every time they add something artificial to our environment, we end up with new diseases, we end up with new problems, we end up with sicknesses and things like that. There's a way we're meant to eat, and it's the way things naturally grow and the way things are naturally taken care of out there in nature, whether it be animals or fruits or vegetables or nuts. And every time you substitute something artificial, synthetic, some kind of a new partialized item, just as the scripture says, do not take away and do not add to. We've taken away from flour, whole wheat, made it white. We've added chemicals to things, so we've added to something else. Every time we do it, we're causing ourselves some kind of problems. Now the next thing is freezing. Freezing does some structural changes to food. If you would freeze a fresh strawberry, have two of them, and one of them you eat fresh from the field, and you notice the sweetness and the great flavor, and you freeze the other one, and then thaw it out. Well, the funny thing about it, we can all recognize when you lay that strawberry down and let it thaw out, it collapses. It doesn't return to that same strawberry like you picked out of the field. It breaks down and collapses, and many times the sweetness of it will have disappeared. I can't explain all of the things that happens to it, but we know that freezing doesn't help our food. It may make it so that we can nourish ourselves to some degree over the years, and it may be definitely better than some other things that we might do to the food, but it's a poor choice to fresh and food picked in the right time. Now when you reheat food, there's another thing. Say for instance, you take leftovers. I've known of people that never save their leftovers, and I always thought, gee, they're wasteful. They didn't save their leftovers. But the real problem with saving your leftovers today with refrigeration the way we have it is not the leftovers. It's the reheating of it. And as you reheat it, you're again doing a little bit more destruction of it. So you can eat things cold. You'd be surprised how many things you can make with sandwiches from something cold without reheating it. So it might be a good habit to get into from that. Well, I guess the other ways is putting the sprays that they might spray on the foods. And for instance, even in a restaurant, dare that you ask restaurants what they put on their salads. So we talk about salads are good in restaurants. We go ask them, what kind of chemicals are they using on their salads to keep them fresh while they're on the salad bar? It might scare you a little bit to what they're doing to them. So we need to get involved and ask these questions to people. It can make a big difference in our life.
What about iced and hot drinks?
Well, iced and hot drinks, assuming they're a good quality of product, like we might have spring water, it's iced and it's cold, sounds like that'd be a pretty good idea. Hot drinks, well, we're not doing much to them, we're just making them hot, and that sounds like it's a pretty good idea. But there's a lot more involved in it than that. We actually take water itself, dilutes our digestive juices. So if we drink an iced, or just plain water, we're going to dilute our digestive juices, and we're going to perhaps change the point of digestion in our system. And in fact, just by diluting them, we may render them so we don't digest them as good as we should. So it's not recommended that we have any liquids at all except perhaps milk, because milk is kind of a food compared to a water. Like juices and coffee and tea and all these iced drinks are water-soluble things, helps to dilute. Anyhow, they're going to dilute our digestive juices, and so having any drinks at a meal is not good. We usually suggest that we shouldn't drink before a half an hour to any meal. Give it a chance for it to leave our stomach, and don't drink again until 2 hours after the meal. Give it a chance for most of our digestion to go on from our stomach before we add anything that's water-type base to it. Milk is, again, a different product. But cold delays the digestive action. So that's that. Now, the thing about hot drink is that hot drinks are usually hot enough, and I think most people that use hot drinks use them hot enough, that when they drink a hot drink with a meal, they're actually adding enough heat down there in their stomach, which their stomach's already somewhere around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. When you add the hot drink, it can increase it above the 107 degrees that kills the enzymes. So we're in turn damaging all of our digestive processes by any hot drinks at mealtime. As you can see, drinking at mealtime is not a good idea because of it delaying and diluting your digestive juices. And drinking hot foods, you can see, is a problem area because it's going to kill the digestive enzymes that are very important to properly digest all of your foods.
Well, Jack, can you tell us about cooking foods?
Well, we've been building up to this quite a bit, and I think we've covered it nearly what we should do, but let's just indicate cooking does kill some vitamins, but not all. Thank goodness, or we probably wouldn't be able to make it very long. It just kills part of them. It definitely kills all enzymes from 107 degrees to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. All the enzymes in food dies. And if we would look at many breakfasts, let's design a breakfast that would not be good for you. And that's a breakfast you might have stewed prunes. You see, they've been cooked now. You have Frozen orange juice. So you think, boy, I have a nice glass of reconstituted orange juice from frozen, and you have frozen orange juice, and you have fried eggs, and that's supposed to be good for your breakfast, and you have bread and butter, and you have milk that's pasteurized, and next thing you know, you have a nice breakfast laid out, and it doesn't have any raw fruit, and it has no enzymes. And your lunch comes along, and you're kind of in a big hurry, and you get some kind of a sandwich somewhere with baked bread, and maybe it's got deep fat fried fish, and you know, a few other things like this, maybe a couple of vegetables even, cooked, and you have no enzymes. Well, the enzymes are so important to us, and so we want to make sure that we do get enzymes. So cooking food really kills the enzymes, and that's one of the main things. And let alone cooking also helps to make this food, especially if it's water-based, like you're making a soup or something, or you're going to cook some vegetable and you just dump your vegetables in a pot of water and you cook them like you might many times. I don't recommend that. I recommend you do your steaming of your vegetables. But you might cook them in a pot of water. And if you did and then pour the water away, you're getting rid of 35 out of the 40 nutrients because they're water soluble. So cooking really does a job on that sort of thing too. You would save the water on these cooking. So if you do cook, save the water, put it in something else, some other kind of a food that you use. Frying at a low temperature. I know a lot of people question frying. Frying is out. Well, I'm sorry to say, but most of the kind of directions that you would get from a lot of authorities, they really don't want to tell you that there's good and bad fats. They don't want to tell you there's good and bad ingredients of any kind. Again, back on the idea, all the foods are good and there's none of them got to be bad, and no matter who you get them from, they're all good. It's just not the truth. And so as you fry things, you can fry them at a low temperature, and you don't have to fry them until they're crisp. You can use natural fresh oils, and it's a lot different than if you use old stale oils. It becomes obvious when the oil is rancid that it wouldn't be a good idea. And people used to keep bacon renderings, for instance, or bacon grease, just for a long time. They'd just keep using it over and over. And maybe sometimes it would get rancid too. So it's not good to do that sort of thing.
What are some of the things we should avoid around the house?
We should avoid things around the house that's going to do us harm. And one of the things we've already talked about is the aluminum pans. A lot of people have pans because they're cheap and they're made out of aluminum, and the aluminum is bare. You can tell a plain aluminum pan easily. It's going to transfer aluminum to the food and transfer food to the aluminum back and forth, and we're going to get a lot of aluminum salts in our system. I think it will help be one of the major reasons that people have Alzheimer's disease. So in the aluminum in baking powder, I've said change that. Use something that's not aluminum. Antiperspirants, it's got aluminum in it and it stops your perspiring. Use some other natural deodorant, and there's many kinds available, including that rock I was showing you about. The salt the same way. Pick a better salt. Those are some of the main food items and one of the things you would avoid around a house in that particular area.
If antiperspirants are out, what do we use?
Well, I've already spoke about that now. We're definitely going to use some natural deodorants, and there is types you can even find in the regular stores, besides there's some in the health food store. I recommend this rock. It's made out of different minerals and potassium, and it seems to work very well. I've seen it do a very good job on people. Very highly recommended.
Well, is there anything else that we should avoid?
We should avoid a lot of things, especially chemicals and things like that. You know, we can avoid a lot of things by just being natural. And I could have indicated in the aluminum things and stuff like that, or what to avoid in the household. Hey, nothing wrong with bathing, washing, soap, and keeping clean, you know, and that kind of a thing. And that surprisingly helps a lot in a lot of those areas too. But we want to avoid things that are, like in the bathing, we might would avoid soaps that leave an alkaline on your skin. And most soaps are that way. They leave an alkaline base on your skin, and in an alkaline base, all kinds of germs can form and cause things like that. Now, hopefully you can fight these off, but at least it gives you more in the area that you would perspire, and more of the odor-type bacteria can form in that alkaline base. So you think you're helping yourself by washing with soap, and all the time the soap is making the alkaline base, it's causing the bacteria to grow better. So if you don't use any soap, you'll do better than if you use alkaline-based soap. But you can find some soaps and shampoos that are pH balanced. You'll hear that story, pH balanced. It's the idea it wants to leave your skin with an acid coating on it, or leave your hair with more of an acid, very lightly acid coating, and you can be a lot healthier from that point of view. So those are some of the things that has to do with your skin, things on that. Another one is mineral oil. You want to avoid mineral oil because mineral oil has a way of destroying the oil-soluble, the vitamins A, D, E, and K, and it can soak into your skin. A lot of times you'll have it in cosmetics, you'll have it in creams, and just anything you want to name. Read the labels. I don't care what it is, from a chapstick, if you ever need one of them, to any cream or a cosmetic. If it says mineral oil, don't use it. It'll do you some harm, so we want to get rid of the mineral oil and the harm that it can cause. And that includes baby oil for babies. So some baby oil that has this mineral oil in it, you don't want it. Don't use it on your baby. If you really care about your baby, leave the mineral oil types away. I've talked about the hard rock to take the place of the antiperspirants, and I really think that's a pretty good thing. I'm going to mention something now, and about half the country, especially the young kids, are going to be mad at me, and that's hard rock music. Surprisingly enough, that is one of the things to avoid too. Hard rock music, not only is it a habit to play it loud, and it's very damaging to eardrums playing it loud, you can't exactly blame the hard rock music for loudness, but it is usually played loud. The other thing is that hard rock music, and usually some with a very special beat to it that goes opposite to your natural heartbeat, this hard rock music has been played and tested with living plants for extended period of times. The living plants will actually bend away from the music. And when it's tested with other types of music, not hard rock, the plants thrive and it doesn't bend away from the music. But they literally, the plants are smarter than a lot of humans. They bend away from the music, and if it's continued, plants will die with hard rock music being played around them. So that seems to be very unusual in this situation. Now, the rest of it is personal opinion, and that's not important what the personal opinion is about the music. But they are known to harm your eardrums because of the loudness that they play this, and that's something to stay away from. There's no need of kids growing up till pretty soon they have partially hard of hearing before they even get old enough to even think about being hard of hearing. And it's the heartbeat is reverse of the standard heartbeat. I can't duplicate it at this moment, but it is different in some of this hard rock. I don't know whether they call it metal or what they call it today. There's quite a few variations, but the real hard rock type stuff is not recommended at all. The other thing is poisons and sprays and chemicals that you'd have around the house. I understand, and I'm sorry I can't name the exact ones, but there's 2 or 3 standard household chemicals that if you mix them just right, and you might do that, that you can poison yourself to the point that you might actually die. They're that bad. So you have to be very careful about some of the chemicals that's used around the house, household cleaners and things like that. I believe there's a lot of people becoming aware of that now, and if you'll search, you will find some new products on the market or being advertised today that is more natural. Not only is biodegradable, is helpful to the environment, but there's some of them that's natural enough that they won't give off the poisonous fumes and the chemicals and the combinations of chemicals that we end up with. So that's very important. Again, we have for control of insects and roaches and things like that you might have around the house. Definitely pick the kind that doesn't poison your environment. And there's types available for that. Think about it, ask them about it, and they'll come up with the kinds that's much better for you that won't harm you. That's some of the main things is the chemical stuff that leaves around. You'll find a lot of creams and cosmetics and things like that are also harmful, and you'll want to pick those. Some of them are just you're allergic to them. And anyhow, you want to watch out for things of that nature. That's a household, but out in the yard, you have different things you might put around the yard and track into the home. Or if you have little bitty children, they might get out there crawling around in the grass that's been treated for some kind of insect damage. And again, the lawn is the very same thing. You can grow a lawn healthy with some natural organic materials, and you won't need the poison sprays and chemicals that you use on it. One of the things I'm a little upset about, and I hope you would be too, is that some of the things that's been banned here in America that we already know causes cancer and causes many problems, and they're a chemical that's been banned, these companies are still making this chemical. They want money so bad that they're shipping it to the unknowing countries around this country, around the world. And they ship this chemical to it, and many times it gets put on a food product sometimes and brought back into the country. Stuff like that has to be stopped. That is ridiculous. Anybody's caught in that, vote them out of office, throw them out. It's crooked. It's like they don't care for the little children in other parts of the country. And that's no good. It's no good. And it just keeps going on and on. So we want to do something together and stop that sort of thing.
What about aspirin and painkillers?
Aspirin or painkillers? I'm glad you brought that up because it's one of my pet peeves. It's like saying, well, in fact, let me tell you a story that actually happened. It was in a newspaper many years ago now. But there was this little baby that grew up, and it was a model child. I mean, this little child just hardly ever cried, and it just got along fine, lots of smiling and laughing, and he thought, boy, this is a terrific little kid. And we'd all like to have that kind. When this baby reached about 21 months old, it was in the crib one day, and whenever nobody was looking, the child climbed up over and fell out of the crib onto the floor and broke its arm in a compound fracture with a bone sticking out of its arm. And it was laying there laughing and in no way crying about it. And they knew instantly there was something wrong. Well, to make the story a little short, they discovered that this is one of those very, very rare children that was born without pain endings in the skin. Did not feel pain at all. So pain is a valuable indicator, a flag waving saying, when you've got pain, be smart enough to correct the problem. Never take a painkiller if you can possibly avoid it. Now, if you get in a big bad accident, maybe you can't avoid that. You're all torn up and broken up and things like that. But for most of us on a daily basis, all of the painkillers that's used, all the new models of painkillers that's used, all they do is to go to the pain center in your brain and deaden it so it doesn't feel it. And another little story to give you a feeling. Let's say by some reason you were close to your stove and you're cooking food and you wasn't looking just like you should be looking. And you leaned over and you put your hand on the hot burner. Without pain, you wouldn't know it until you smelled it burning and completely destroyed it, perhaps. And so the pain is letting you know to get it off of there instantly. It's a valuable thing, whether it be one of the 8 different ways that you have a headache, and it's telling you, gee, you have your vertebrae back here all pinched, or gee, you don't have all the B vitamins you need, and you got some migraine headache, and your temples are hurting, or gee, you've got this kind of a problem that's sinus trouble, and you're deficient in these things, and you end up with hurting around your eyes, or up on the top of your head, and it's throbbing off, or something like that. My goodness. Thank God that we have the pain to tell us something. It's very important. You don't want to kill it. You just kill the pain center. You still have that pain. Every time you use one of these painkillers, you still have the pain, you still have the damage going on and the harm that's going on, and all you've done is fooled your body into thinking you don't have the pain. It's kind of ridiculous when you think of it from that point of view. So I'm sure glad that you asked for that. I might also suggest that sometimes you can increase the calcium intake of your body, and you won't feel some of the ordinary pains because it has actually corrected the reason for pain. A lot of people think you only have calcium in your bones and teeth. To be healthy and to feel good, you have about 2% calcium in all of your cells of your body. And when you feel bad all over and kind of pain all over, sometimes you can just be very deficient in that calcium. And it's good to make up that deficiency, that calcium deficiency. We know of anthrax that goes into cows, and we know of Bang's disease or hoof and mouth disease. Those people that know these things know that that's one of the most catching diseases that you could have in animals. I mean, to tell you, they just walk an animal in the same area where another animal has walked that had Bang's disease or hoof and mouth disease, and that animal gets it. And so they will kill. This has been known to kill a whole herd, just because that becomes known that some animal in that herd has hoof and mouth disease. They'll kill the whole herd, bury them, burn them, or whatever else. They're so scared of it. Well, there's been tests run that when they feed cattle on organic, natural foods, and they do this, organic soils, good rich soils, that they can run cattle with hoof and mouth disease right in among them, and they'll never get it. So it isn't the idea you have to have a shot or vaccination, and from the very first thing I said, you don't have to do it. But if you don't live right and you don't eat right, maybe you might need some of them. And you got to live 2 paths. We have a choice throughout this tape to live the path that's healthy or the path that's sick, and we support the doctors or save money.
Well, what about the red in our eyes?
Well, think about it. Why are your eyes red? And you give that a little thought for a minute. Gee, I stayed up too late at night. I've been in this smoky atmosphere, for a long time. I've strained my eyes. I've been reading and reading. I've done whatever so-and-so you've done, and your eyes get bloodshot. Well, what's bloodshot? I mean, bloodshot doesn't read it. Here's what happens. Thank goodness that we have a capability in our eyes to grow larger blood vessels in a matter of minutes practically, or at least in not very long a time, and grow these larger blood vessels that looks like they're bloodshot. And it grows them up through that eye that needs it, and it needs the blood up there to repair the damage you just did. It needs it. And if you don't have it, you're liable to have all kinds of problems that come along. And what do? Oh, let's take the red out, you know. Chemically and artificially and drug those blood vessels till they shrink. Let's stop that flow of health-giving blood. Let's stop the flow with an artificial chemical put in your eye. See these ridiculous approaches to these things. Stop the flow. Make your eye feel better right now. Wouldn't it be better to stay out of that smoke-filled atmosphere? Wouldn't it be better to get your natural, normal rest that you should get? It would be better to feed the eyes and keep them healthy and that sort of thing.
Should we all become vegetarians?
Chances are, and I had a health and nutrition little consulting business for a while, and I had people calling me all over the state and from out of state and everything else trying to get information. I said, gee, I better find some way to answer this. Well, at the time I did this was so long ago that they didn't even have any headings in the yellow pages for health and nutrition. But one of the things I ran into when I did have this place, and I had some patients coming in, was the fact that they would come in and say, gee, I'm having trouble, and I'm eating right. I've been a vegetarian now for a couple of years, or 3 years, or 4 years. Usually it was about 3 or 4 years. And he said, I'm starting to have all kinds of trouble. So to make this story short is, I found this as a general rule, that those people that eat the meat and potatoes, and very few salads and very few fruits, and live on coffee and tea and tobacco and, you know, sort of a poor life. Remember our pendulum pointing over to the left again. If they live that way, next thing you know, somebody comes along and says, well, your health is bad. I'll tell you, be a vegetarian, and it'll improve your health. So they start eating now all these salads, and they get rid of their meat and their potatoes and a whole lot of things at this time, and they swing the pendulum clear over the other way to vegetarianism. And they eat a lot of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and juices, and they don't eat the fat meats and things. And guess what? For 1, 2, 3 years, maybe even up to 4, they have an improvement because they're now correcting a lot of these mistakes that they'd made before, but they're just making new ones. And at the time they're making the new ones, they're passing on, and the pendulum is too far to the right again, and they're now forgetting the proteins that they need and a lot of the vitamins and minerals that comes along with that type of eating and a lot of the other good foods that are in that field. And so they've gone too far. The Scriptures does not even recommend vegetarianism. And there's a lot of things in that approach I could tell you about. But another reason that people are vegetarian, sometimes they think there's less poisons and additives into the vegetable foods. And as we've seen here in this little series, they poison vegetables and fruits more than they do the meat. And in addition, all of the meats from these living animals that have been given the hormones, have been given the poisons that they put into them, things to fatten them and so forth, they have a liver, and they're alive. And a liver is a filtering item that can help filter out a lot of poisons that are there. I won't say they'll do a great job and get them all, because they should reduce the poisons in them. But they filter it out, so that means it gets rid of some of the poisons in the meats. So the vegetarian now is fooling himself because they take and try to think that the vegetables has got less when the vegetables has got the direct poison, not only right on the vegetable, but it has been in the soil and has grown up in the plant and come out into the vegetable or out into the fruit. And now you've got the poison in the fruit and on the fruit. Can't even wash it all off. And they're saying, that's got to be better for me than the meat that's had at least the filtering of the liver. So we've got that kind of a situation. So it's dangerous to be a vegetarian. I'm not saying it's not possible if you're a very, very bright vegetarian. Because as a very bright one, you can combine different kinds of protein, or that is incomplete protein, vegetables or grains or seeds or nuts or beans or something like that. And you can combine them into some very neat combinations, and you can end up with an adequate amount of protein. And so that is possible to eat it. I don't recommend it because for most people, they can never do the job good enough. They're always going to be missing parts of their food. And I had all these patients come in, and that was the correction they needed. And they'd give an excuse, well, maybe it's a religion, or maybe it's the poisons in it. Or they might say something about, gee, I don't like to see them killing animals, you know, or something like that. But they got shoes on and clothes and who knows what all. That comes from animals too. And they're not very consistent, so I'd say at least become consistent.
Are diets good for losing weight?
Well, people have been overweight for as long as I believe anybody's been keeping records. And they've been definitely overweight, and they've had all kinds of diets. The basic rule of a diet up till now, they're getting a little bit wiser now, but the basic rule has been propagated by so-called authorities, medical people and so forth, is to limit your calories or limit the intake of food. Cut down the amount of food that you're eating. It's never worked. Now that doesn't mean I couldn't lock you in a closet and make sure you don't eat enough food and that you won't die, you won't lose weight. Of course you would. You'd lose weight. In fact, almost any change that you make that limits some of the calories you're taking in will probably cause you to lose weight. But these changes don't, for the most part, ever help your health. So diets are usually built around limiting your calories below what your body normally requires, or it's built around exercise, and even in the scriptures it says, bodily exercise profiteth thou little. It doesn't say it profiteth you none, and it doesn't say it profiteth you super great, just a little. So bodily exercise today is something that we probably even need a little more, because most of us, our jobs makes it so we don't work very much. We don't really work by the sweat of our brow. That's really intended. We don't build up a sweat or put blisters on our hands today or really go out there and doing a lot of hard labor like a lot of people used to. So I'd suggest some kind of a moderation in this as well. And if you don't work hard, find some kind of exercise to make it up, whether it be walking or swimming or any of the exercise that you'd want. So that way we're doing some exercises. And other than that, the diet from the wrong source damages your health. You get good and sick and tired of it after a while, and you turn around and go back and eat the way you always did. You did not have behavioral modification, and you didn't change the way you ate. You just ate less of something. And so all these diets are coming and going. The people are cycling. They weight gain for a while, then they reduce their weight for a while, and they end up with all the problems from this. And it hasn't really worked. Over the long period of time, we still got as many people overweight and all kinds of problems in it that we've always had. They're even worrying now about babies being overweight and young people being overweight. It's quite a real problem. So I'm saying you must change your eating habits to take care of you. It's the idea of building health to lose weight is probably the only answer yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Build health to lose weight. Let your body adjust your weight as long as you aren't overeating and really pigging out when you shouldn't be. You build the health to lose weight, and that's the key to losing weight.
Well, what if I wanted to gain weight?
Well, if you want to gain weight, if you're saying artificially gain weight, like you're a super athlete or something like that and you want to put on a lot of extra weight, there's only a real way. You still build health to gain weight. And you might, in this case, eat more and especially more of just protein foods. And I'm going to say not only the protein powders that a lot of them have for weight gaining abilities, we know that helps to build the muscle and build up, but you'd probably eat all of the other foods in balance, because the idea you want to gain weight, but you want to maintain your health. You don't want to ruin your health, so you're fine, I've gained a lot of extra weight and I can be a better football player, or maybe I can lift weights better, and you've gained all this weight and you're heavier, but your health is getting shot, and next thing you know, you got all kinds of health problems. That really isn't worth it. So never eat junk foods to gain weight. They won't do you any good. What's the use of filling up on ice creams and cakes and pies and pastries and desserts and all the different white flour products that you can? Of course, don't use the chemicals either to gain weight. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that. Just like the losing weight, there's no need to take a chemical and artificially force you to lose weight. You wouldn't want to artificially force you to gain weight.
Should we exercise a lot?
If you exercise a lot, usually what happens is you get hungry and eat more. So artificial amount of exercise is not good either. These people that are running these big marathons and running across country and everything else, that hasn't built their health up a lot. We find a few of them have died from that cause because they haven't built their health up, but they've really exercised beyond what their health is able to take care of them for. So it's not a good advice to just do a lot of exercise. Now, if you are going to be an active person, or your job style is one of very active, and you like the exercise to the point, let's say you're an athlete, you're some kind of a player of some kind, and that's your business, you can't probably exercise too much, because that's what you're doing all the time. You're not just exercising a lot and then just sitting there and doing nothing, like a what is it, couch potato, they say, for the next part of your life. That's the part that's not good. So you could exercise a lot and it'd be all right if that's the kind of a lifestyle that you have. You're continuing to do that. But you must eat the balanced food, you must eat a good diet. Along with this exercising, it's very important to tone up your body with a little exercising and keep your nutrition up.
Is it good to shop at supermarkets?
Well, that is something where I have observed many people. Maybe I'm unlike a lot of people because I go in a supermarket and I look at this big grocery cart there, and I look in there and I say, is there any food at all that's nourishing in that tray? Is there any at all? Most of the time, if I can find 1 or 2 items in the average grocery cart, it would surprise me, because 1 or 2 items, that's good for you. The rest of the time, it's the junk food items. It's the food without the good nourishment in it and things that's going to harm you. Let's go to a chart now. Look at your chart, what mothers buy at the supermarkets, and don't be worry about this, mothers, because the fathers sometimes shop too, and it's not just mothers, and it's not your fault. But this is what usually is bought at the supermarkets. Okay, on this chart is what mothers buy at the supermarket regularly. This is their daily. They go out and shop every day practically. There is these columns. This is the white flour items. These are combinations of white flours. Here's sugar items, and these are combinations that are mostly sugar. They're always combinations of other things. Over here we have the poor foods, and that includes chocolate milk and lots of things down along the line here. There's many more on all these columns than I've said before. And then these are very bad for you. If you take any of these columns, look them over on your own charts at home. Many of these things, or many other things, are made up of the same things that these columns are. Many people take out on the cart 90 to 95% of everything they carry out of a grocery store is not fit to eat. It doesn't add to your nutrition. It doesn't help you out in any way. It is a bunch of junk things that's there. The old supermarket with 100 items, you could now find your fruits, your vegetables, your meats, your nuts, all of these real foods, where today it's all kinds of processed up, canned, bottled, and artificial things with partialized foods. So see these. Most of these will not sustain life, and all of them together will not give enough nutrition to keep you healthy. Let's see this next chart I'd like to talk about. Now, what should you buy at a supermarket? Here's some basic things. Read this chart carefully. Unless you can find these better elsewhere, like in a produce stand or a health food store, you can go ahead and buy your meats there, your vegetables there, some of your fruits there that's raw, of course, your dried and bagged seeds and things like that. A lot of sweeteners. You can buy honey there. Sometimes it's not raw and not the best honey. Nuts, again, get the raw nuts. Most of your dairy products you'll probably get from there, although some of them you'll get at a health food store when you can get the better kinds. Cooking the salad oil you can get there, dried fruits, your juices, and make your own things like salad dressings, sauces, cakes, pies, desserts, ice cream, bread, stuffing, pancakes, waffles, and so on. Make your own from natural products that you can get there. Now, what should you buy at health food stores? The list is quite long, but there's some very special things. Your bread, your rolls, your nuts, all of these things that are grown as grains, all your cereals, certain milks that you can get. You can get milks from goat milk. You can get pasteurized milk. Most of the time they don't allow you to have the raw milk, but sooner or later you can. And of course, all of these other items are very good things to get from your health food store. That's very important.
What about produce stands and farms for buying food?
They're very good choices. If you can find anybody that grows organic products in the area, or just good fresh products where you can get them fresh, that's always a better thing than a lot of them that's green at the store. So go to produce stands if you can get those. Go out to farms if you can find any of the farmers to get that kind of a thing. Find things at the health food store, and you can get some other things at their supermarket. But try to pick the farms, the produce stands, and health food stores as the first choices, and the supermarkets for theirs. They have to ship them all across the country. And until they can change and get better foods brought in fresher, well, we're still going to be getting the things picked green.
Well, Jack, do you have other ways that you might suggest that we can protect our health and learn to eat better?
Well, there's probably quite a number of ways that we could protect our health and eat better. What I've done is I've listed, I have 3 pages, have 36 different ways that we can protect our health and eat better. And in a way, it'll kind of summarize some of the things that we have. So I'm going to ask everybody to get their charts out and ways to protect your health and read those through. I won't be able to cover them all here out loud. But let's turn the chart up and see ways to protect your health. I have 36 of them on the next 3 pages. Obviously, you have them in front of you, so we can't read all of them. I'll make just a few points to give you an idea. Make a point to eat nice portion of raw, fresh food every time you eat anything, no matter whether it's a little meal or a large meal. If you can eat some raw food with it, it'll help you to get your quoted amount. Half of your food each day should be raw. The raw food contains the enzymes that will aid the body to use all the foods better. Do not drink during a meal. Within a half an hour before, within 2 hours after the meal, drinking will dilute your digestive juices and either slow down the digestion or render the food useless. Digestive enzymes do their work at definite places and times as the food moves along the digestive path. Do not drink hot drinks, especially when food will be present in your stomach. The temperature in your stomach is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Enzymes are killed and will not work or break down foods or build up foods in the cells at temperatures above 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Most hot drinks will increase the food temperature in your stomach to over 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Read through the rest of them. All of them are important. I'd like to cover every one. Another one is chew your food well to start the digestion, as in the case of starch foods, or to prepare the food for the stomach digestion. Chewing your food allows it to digest at a correct place and at the correct time. If starch is not partially digested when it reaches the stomach, it may cause trouble. Don't eat between meals. We've talked about that. We've talked about the pain and how important the pain is, so don't use painkillers if you can do without them at all. The sugar products, that is far more harmful than I've ever said so far in this movie. It is in practically every product you can find in grocery stores. Be careful. Try to use as little of it as you can. Avoid the pork because of the trichinosis problem. On this last page, I'm suggesting, among all the other things, is to walk a lot, that you can work around if you're hardworking and you don't do much exercise during the day, and if you don't, do a little exercise some of the day. Try to sleep about 8 hours each night. Get at least 7. Probably if you need over 9 hours of sleep, there can be another problem that's involved with people that needs too much sleep. Stay out of smoke-filled rooms. And of course we're saying don't smoke. Now, think positively, not negatively. This is always good. Love people. Love them a lot. Don't hate them. Be more of a loving type of person and a positive person, and you'll find that'll help it a lot. Follow the Bible in the ways that it tells you to eat and live. The Bible is the best nutritional book I know of, and it actually tells you that if you eat like God wants you to eat, you will have no diseases. And isn't that what we're all after? Is to have no diseases.
What do you think will happen if thousands and thousands of people change the way they eat?
Boy, a lot of things, and I'm counting on it. That's what this whole program is all about. Well, our food will get better for one. I think we'll not only have better tasting food, but we'll have food that we don't have to add so many chemicals to even make it taste good. So it's going to get a lot better. There's going to be a lot of bad products that literally go out of business, and they should. I'm looking forward to it. They're bad products. They've hurt people long enough, so they'll just go away. There'll be a lot of new and healthier products come along because there'll be more people asking for them, and these new products will come onto the market too. People will have less pain, they'll have less suffering, less diseases, they'll live longer, they'll be happier, and they'll get along better with one another. I don't know, maybe there'll be less wars and less diseases, less divorces, I don't know. Lots of things I expect to happen. They're going to be happier, and that's the most important thing. We must tell all these stories to people, spread the word, and maybe the processors are here about a lot of this, and they're going to make the changes that we need so we can make a difference. And the more people out there that want to make this difference, they just have to speak up. Talk to their grocery store people, talk to the food processors, be boycotting the things that are not good, and things will change as thousands of people do it.
Who do we blame for this present condition? What can we do?
Well, we can probably open our eyes and ears and know ourselves who to blame for this, because somebody is not doing what they should do. Somebody is causing the problem, somebody is allowing it to happen, somebody is encouraging it, somebody is not teaching the right things. We can go to our schools, we can go to our government agencies, all of them. We can go to the doctors, to the AMA. We can go to all these kind of people. I don't like to see these early deaths and pain and suffering. And I know that the AMA is a lot at fault, and a lot of doctors are at fault for not informing their people. I think the schools that train the doctors are at fault because they're not teaching them the natural nutrition or anything else. I think our own general schools are at fault too, because they, again, will not teach the nutrition that needs to be taught. There is just a lot of people to blame, but blaming, isn't going to be the only thing. It's doing something about it, writing to them, and letting them know how you feel about it. There will be, we're literally at war every year. Can you imagine another country coming into America and killing 300,000 of our people, or many more than that, every year? Well, you get a little bit upset. You're liable to do a little shooting back once in a while. So we got to really look at what's happening and who the enemy really is, and let's get rid of the enemy. Let's absolutely get rid of the enemy any way we can. Vote them out any other way you want to do it.
Well, is there anything else now that you can recommend?
I do definitely recommend eating like God has planned overall. And maybe you don't have to know all these things about nutrition that we've talked about, but just eat things the way you see them naturally growing out there. Don't add stuff to them. Don't take away from them. Eat them in their skin. Eat them the way that they're meant to be, fresh and raw and whole. And that's probably one of the main things. And part of God's promise, you eat like He tells you to eat, you will have no diseases. And I think that's one of the greatest things that can happen to us today. So I have combined in this series the best of the nutritional information I've been able to find over the many years, many thousands of books and articles and things I've read, finding out some of them weren't good and read another one and then another one before I really decide what is good. So I've tried to put all of these together with the idea that none of this is really messed up by other interests. I don't have any ways of making money by selling you a certain food or a vitamin or some combination of things. This is straight from the heart of just exactly what I think people ought to do. I want to thank you folks for coming. You've asked terrific questions. I've enjoyed them thoroughly, and I hope the audience have enjoyed them. Now, God bless you all, and may your efforts be very successful into having better health, and may we do something to correct this problem in this world. So thanks for coming again.